Ostracized over my inheritance, I sought peace but faced humiliation. Furious, I cut off my sister's rent, exposing my parents' manipulation. I arrived for a family meal, but they remarked, "We weren't expecting you. Go away, loser." I replied, "Okay, but from now on, you'll be paying my sister's rent." They begged, but it was too late. I did not want to go at first. Why would I, given what had happened in the previous years? But something inside me didn't want to hold on to the hatred forever. My father was turning 57, and while I wasn't their favorite person, I figured I could be the bigger man and at least show up. Things had gotten awful ever since I acquired my grandfather's estate. Grandpa and I were close. I spent a lot of time with him while growing up. He often told me stories about his early troubles, how he had to fight for everything he had. I believe he saw something of himself in me, which is why he left me a large sum of money when he died. This decision did not sit well with either my parents or my sister, Rachel. They were outraged that Grandpa had not left them anything, as if it were my fault or something. I attempted to explain that I had nothing to do with it, but they would not listen. After that, nothing remained the same. They treated me like an alien, as if I had stolen from them. They were frigid at family gatherings. Sometimes, they didn't even invite me. I maintained my distance, but this time I decided to try and make things better. I purchased a bottle of my father's favorite whiskey, the costly variety he only drank on exceptional occasions. I even bought him a box of gourmet cigars. Maybe I was foolish to believe that a few nice gifts would change everything, but I had to try. When I arrived at Rachel's place, she answered the door. She was the one person who had not fully shut me out. We weren't very tight, but we kept in touch here and there. "Hey, Daniel," she said, slightly astonished. "I didn't know you were coming." "Yeah," I responded. "I thought I'd show up for Dad's birthday." She paused for a moment before shrugging and letting me in. As I entered the living room, I noticed a group of family members sitting, talking, and laughing. For a little while, everything seemed normal, but then I saw my parents. My mother's face became paler, and my father's attitude stiffened. The room became quiet. "You," my father growled, "what are you doing here?" I tried to remain cool. "I came to wish you a happy birthday. I brought some presents." He scoffed. "We didn't invite you." My mom shook her head. "Why are you even here? You always bring trouble. Just leave." I could feel my patience running out. I had come here to make peace, and this was the reaction I received. I glanced around at the other family members. They were uncomfortable, as if they were witnessing something they weren't allowed to see. I remarked, maintaining an even tone, "I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to celebrate with you." My father snorted. "Celebrate? You're nothing but a loser. You think a few gifts will make up for everything?" That struck a nerve. All those years of being treated like dirt, as if I didn't belong, came flooding back. I clenched my jaw, hoping to keep it together, but then my father pushed it further. "Get out, Daniel," he instructed. "We don't want you here." And that was all. Something inside of me cracked. "Fine," I replied, my voice frigid. "I'll go, but guess what? I've been paying Rachel's rent all this time because you couldn't be bothered to help her." "Not anymore. That's on you now." Their expressions froze, as if they hadn't expected me to advocate for myself. My mother suddenly hurried forward. "Wait, Daniel, no." I interrupted. "I'm done. You don't want me here? Fine, but you'll regret this." I turned and walked out, leaving the home completely silent. As I approached my car, I could hear them cry from the front door, imploring me to stop, but I did not glance back. I got in and sped away, fury rising in my chest. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain: I wasn't going to be their punching bag any longer. The following morning, my phone burst with notifications. Rachel had called me 6 times, left 3 voicemails, and sent numerous texts. I ignored her at first. I needed some distance to clear my mind after what had occurred last night. But curiosity got the best of me. This morning, Rachel called me, asking if I was plotting with you. It's crazy, I hadn't anticipated the rest of the family to become involved so quickly. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, trying to take everything in. Well, Rachel, I'm sorry you got caught in the middle, I told her, but I'm done being their scapegoat. They've treated me like crap ever since Grandpa's inheritance. They didn't even want me there last night. I'm not going to keep playing nice when all they do is insult me. She crossed her arms and stared at me. They could have at least talked to me first, you know. I need that money. I know, I admitted, softening my tone, but maybe it's time for them to take some responsibility. They're your parents too. Why should I be the one to keep you afloat while they sit on their hands? Rachel did not respond right away. I could tell she was torn. On one hand, she knew I was correct, but on the other, she felt the pressure from our parents. Eventually, she shook her head. This is going to get ugly, she grumbled. I'm ready for it, I said, and things did get ugly faster than I thought. By the afternoon, word had spread among the wider family. My cousin Megan, who always liked to play the role of mediator, called me. Hey, Daniel, she said cautiously. I heard about the fight last night. What's going on? I gave her the outline, omitting some of the harsher aspects. Megan listened carefully. You know they say you ruined the party, right? But honestly, a lot of people are on your side. Uncle Rob thinks your dad and mom crossed the line, and Aunt Lisa told them off for the way they treated you. This was surprising. Aunt Lisa normally avoided family turmoil, so her involvement must have irritated her greatly. Wow, I said, didn't see that coming. Yeah, Megan replied, but Rachel called me earlier, and she's pissed. I think she feels like you threw her under the bus. I massaged my temples. This was turning into a full-fledged family feud. A part of me felt bad, however, another part of me felt relieved. For once, I wasn't the only one feeling their fury. Maybe they'll finally realize how toxic our parents can be. Later that night, Rachel sent me a lengthy text message. She accused me of being selfish and leaving her when she needed me the most. It stung, but I knew she was just acting out under pressure. I did not respond. 2 days later, things erupted again. My father showed up at my workplace. I worked at a downtown marketing firm and was astonished to find him standing in the entrance. He wasn't even attempting to mask his rage. We need to talk, he stated bluntly. I'm working, I said, my voice calm. You can call me later. No, he replied, we're doing this now. I sighed and let him outside. He didn't waste any time lying to me. You embarrassed this family, he remarked. Do you realize how many people are turning against us because of your stunt? You think you're better than us now, don't you? Better than you? I replied. No, but I'm not going to let you treat me like dirt anymore. I came to your birthday out of respect, and you threw it back in my face. His eyes narrowed. You think you're entitled because of Grandpa's money? Without him, you'd have nothing. That's rich, I replied. You're the one who's bitter about not getting a share. This isn't about respect or family, it's about control. He didn't answer immediately, but I could see the rage in his eyes. Finally, he added, you're going to regret this, Daniel. No, I replied firmly. You are. He stormed away without saying another word. As I watched him leave, I understood this wasn't over, but for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally standing firm. A few days later, I learned of the impact from other relatives. Aunt Lisa called to complain about how my father had gone around attempting to turn the entire family against me. Apparently, he told everyone that I had betrayed the family and cut off Rachel as punishment. But to my astonishment, some relatives did not believe the narrative. Uncle Rob had told my father, you treated Daniel like garbage. Didn't you expect consequences? Lisa stated that several others were also beginning to see through the act. They remembered how distant my parents had gotten since the inheritance incident. Some of them were now silently supporting me. However, not everyone was supportive. Rachel had in front of everyone. You think I'm just going to roll over and take it? Rachel gazed down at her hands. I know they were wrong, she said, but they're still our parents. I don't want to be in the middle of this fight. I could tell she was straining, caught between her allegiance to them and the comfort I had provided. I decided to be honest. Look, Rachel, I never wanted to make you choose sides, but I'm not going to let them walk all over me anymore. I've supported you because I care, not because I owe them anything. If they want to be responsible for you, let them. Her eyes were filled with frustration. You don't get it, she retorted. They won't help me. They never have. Without your support, I'm screwed. For a brief minute, I felt guilty, but then I remembered the years of insults, how they had regarded me like an outcast. I was not going to give up my mental health for those who did not appreciate me. I'm sorry, Rachel, I whispered quietly, but I can't do this anymore. She stood and shook her head. Fine, but don't come crying to me when this all backfires. She left without saying anything else. The following day, events took an unexpected turn. Uncle Rob called to ask if I could meet him for coffee. I agreed, curious to know what he wanted. When I arrived, he quickly got to the point. Look, Daniel, I know things have been tough with your parents, but I want you to know that you're not alone. A lot of us have seen the way they treated you. It's not right. Thank you, Rob, I replied, sipping my coffee, but I'm not sure what good it does. They're not going to change. Maybe not, he acknowledged, but I think it's time we stop letting them control the narrative. You don't have to fight this fight alone. He went on to say that other relatives were preparing to confront my parents about their behavior. I had not expected this, most of them normally avoided family conflict, but this time they were taking a stand. That night, Aunt Lisa called me. We just had a meeting with your parents, she stated. It got heated. We told them they needed to apologize to you and start treating you with respect. Of course, your dad was stubborn as hell, but I think we got through to your mom a little. I was stunned. For years, I felt lonely, as if I were the only one who recognized how toxic my parents could be. The family was starting to push back against their actions. Still, I wasn't waiting for an apology. People, including my father, did not change overnight. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, Rachel sent me a message. It was short and mysterious. We need to talk. Something's happened. Rachel's message made me nervous. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of me. I texted her back, "What's going on?" Her reply was immediate, "Come to Mom and Dad's. It's serious." Despite my better judgment, I drove over. I knew I was entering enemy territory, but if something was truly wrong, I decided I should at least listen to her. When I arrived, Rachel met me at the door. She had a solemn expression on her face, as if she were bracing herself for something heavy. "They're in the living room," she replied softly. I followed her inside and found my parents sitting stiffly on the couch. They both appeared tense, but there was also a hint of something strange. My father motioned for me to sit down, but I remained standing. "All right," I replied, crossing my arms. "What's this about?" My mother sighed heavily. "We didn't want to tell you this way, but Rachel's in trouble. She's behind on her rent again," my father explained. "We just found out that she might be evicted." I looked at Rachel. She looked aside, biting her lip. "We can't let that happen," my father added. "She needs your help, Daniel, just until she gets back on her feet." I stared at them for a moment, allowing the words to sink in. Something did not feel right. "How did you just find out about this?" I asked, seeking an explanation. "We got a call from her landlord," my mother stated hurriedly, too quick. Rachel shifted uneasily and avoided eye contact. My instincts kicked in. She had lied to me previously, and the whole situation reeked of manipulation. "So let me get this straight," I said carefully. "You're telling me that her landlord called you instead of her, and this is trying to protect Rachel? You're the one who cut her off." I snapped back. "I cut you off. Rachel is a grown woman, and if she's in trouble, it's between her and me. But instead of coming to me honestly, you chose to lie, and you wonder why I want nothing to do with you. I turned to face Rachel. You went along with this? She seemed embarrassed. They pressured me. I didn't know what else to do. Well, congratulations, I replied bitterly. You all just made things 10 times worse. I stormed out, but I wasn't finished. My rage only escalated on the way home. I had put up with their manipulation for years, but this was the final straw. Did they want to play games? Fine. I was going to set the record straight. When I arrived home, I began phoning and messaging the family who had been in contact with me. I told them everything, how my parents had lied about Rachel being in danger, how they had tried to guilt me into assisting after humiliating me at the party, and how they had turned the entire situation into a circus. The responses were quick and nasty. Uncle Rob contacted me first. You're telling me they made that whole story up? Jesus Christ, that's low even for them. Aunt Lisa became very furious. I'm done with them, she said. They've played the victim card for too long. They're toxic, and they've been dragging this family into their mess for years. Word spread immediately. Within a day, the majority of the family understood the truth. The tide had completely changed. Relatives who had been on the fence began to cut off communication with my parents and Rachel. Nobody wants to deal with their deception and manipulation anymore. Rachel texted me, begging me to stop. Please, Daniel, you're losing everyone. They say it's your fault. My fault? I said. You brought this on yourself. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely supported. The family finally realized what I had been struggling with all along. My parents and Rachel attempted damage control, but it was too late. Nobody bought their justifications anymore. It was bizarre. For so long, I had felt like the black sheep, but suddenly I was no longer an outcast. My parents were. Frankly, it seemed like justice. A week later, the aftermath was complete. My parents attempted to rally support from the rest of the family, however, their expectations had not been met. Megan told me that they had even sought out some of their more distant relatives whom they hadn't spoken to in years in an attempt to elicit sympathy. They called Aunt Marie. You know, the one who never puts up with anybody's nonsense, Megan remarked, laughing as she told me. Apparently, my father told her a sob story about how I turned everyone against them. She replied, maybe if you weren't such a control freak, your family wouldn't hate you. Then she hung up on him. Hearing that was more satisfying than I wanted to admit, but the big shock came when I discovered they were attempting to seek assistance from Uncle Peter, the wealthy individual who resided out of state. Peter had always been rather indifferent about family problems, but he was not ignorant. He had seen through my parents' games years before. I later learned that when they called him, he did not hold back. Don't call me again. I'm not wasting my time with your theatrics, he told them. It was horrible. Every lifeline they attempted to clutch crumbled into dust. The people they formerly ruled had had enough. By the end of the week, my parents were almost completely isolated. Rachel attempted to contact a few cousins, but none of them were interested in getting involved anymore. The entire family had cut her off. They're done, Rob informed me. No one wants to deal with their drama. It's just them now, Mom, Dad, and Rachel in their little kingdom of misery. I nearly felt bad for Rachel almost. She had decided to side with them and support their lies. Now she was stranded on their sinking ship. A few days later, my father contacted me. I pondered ignoring it but ultimately chose to respond. I was curious to hear what he would say. Daniel, he said after a pause, we need to talk. Do we? I said, my tone icy. We made some mistakes, he said hesitantly, but you've made things worse by turning everyone against us. Don't you think it's time to end this feud? I laughed bitterly. You think this is my fault? You brought this on yourself. You lied to me. You humiliated me in front of my family. Now you're facing the consequences, and you want me to fix it.